This is a reminder of several stories which allow a very important question to be posed, and that question will allow us to move more deeply into our endeavor to understand and to know and to experience the nature of emptiness. There was that young Jewish scholar who went to the house of learning every day, and every day he studied assiduously the Torah and the Talmud. Then one day, in the middle of his studies, he jumped up and ran out into the street. And he said, "I'm not going to read another word. I'm not going to turn another page until I know the meaning of life." And he went around saying this to everyone, and all his friends were very worried about him. They couldn't give him any answers. But finally, someone suggested that he go to a very wise rabbi who lived in a town some distance from his own. So he made that journey to the learned rabbi, and when he sat down in front of the rabbi, he asked him, "Please, I must know, what is the meaning of life?" The rabbi looked at him and then stood up and went over and slapped him hard across the face. And the young man started to weep. It was painful, and but I was only asking a question. What is the meaning of life? And the rabbi looked at him and said, "You stupid fellow, you have such a wonderful question. Why are you wanting an answer? Answers are divisive, and questions are unifying." Then there's that story about the young man who was recently brought in to the service of the great Japanese shogun of the day. But he came from the country. He knew nothing about service to the shogun, and of course the shogun was the greatest swordsman. This is how he became the shogun, by his valor, by his swordsmanship. So the young servant sought out the greatest swordmaster in the land to learn the art of swordsmanship. When he came into the presence of the great swordmaster, who was renowned not only for being a swordmaster, but also a master of the ways of Zen, the young man asked the master, please, will you teach me the art of swordsmanship?" Now, this swordmaster, who prided himself on his ability to be able to perceive and intuit the abilities of whoever came into his presence, said to the young man, "Well, tell me, what school of swordsmanship have you been studying in?" The young man said, "Oh, I've never been to a school. I've not learned the art of swordsmanship." The swordmaster said, "Don't lie to me! Don't lie to me!" The young man was very effaced, and he said, "My apologies, master, but I know nothing of swordsmanship. I've never had a sword in my hand." And then the swordmaster looked at the young man speculatively, and the young man thinking of a response, said to the sword master, well, could it be that in my youth I saw a lot of death? I saw death in many forms. I had to face death for myself. So I studied death in all its ways. And I no longer have a fear of death. Ah, said the source master, go. I can teach you nothing. You are already a sword master. The third little story is again about a young Jewish scholar who also studied every moment the Talmud and the Torah. He fasted and he prayed far more than any of the other students that attended the great rabbi who was their teacher and their master. But then suddenly the young scholar stopped coming to the synagogue. He stopped going to the schools. He stopped fasting. He stopped praying. And everyone was concerned about him. He seemed to be totally lost. And of course, the rabbi noticed this, and after some little while, the rabbi put on his cloak, and he went to visit the young man in his house. And he said to the young man, "You're not studying the Torah anymore." "No," said the young man. "You're not coming to the synagogue anymore." "No." "You're not fasting." "No." "You're not praying." "No." So the rabbi knew that this was a definitive moment. The question that's asked of you is, what did the rabbi say to this young man? This young man who was facing the abyss, the void, the emptiness, the unknown, the ultimate death. You, as a rabbi, what would you say to this young man? Some time ago, it was spoken of that we had to learn to express the inexpressible. And we now know what that is. That language of oneness that we had to evoke from within ourselves. But now, we have the challenge to answer this question, and answer it we must, because otherwise we ourselves do not know the nature of the void or the emptiness. Can only be in our expression of it, our ability to verbalize it, that we ourselves are going to know, understand the nature of emptiness. What would you say to this young man? When someone comes to us who's lost their whole family in an accident, or a child has died, or their spouse has been run over, What language of oneness is going to suffice in that situation? Are you going to say, oh, don't make it real? Of course not. In these definitive moments, what will we say? When we find this answer, we have all the answers. So I ask you this question. See where it leads us in the coming days. What would you say to that young man? What is it that lies beyond the three levels of existence? Existence, knowledge, and bliss. Where is this that we find ourselves when all three come together for us in every moment, in a state that is beyond movement, and yet movement continues. This is our question for the moment. See where it leads us. Thank you.